The Little League softball program had grown tremendously from the first pitch in 1974, and with the launch of Athletes Unlimited in 2018, the dreams of young girls aspiring to be professional softball players was now once again attainable. Thanks to the expansion of the Little League Softball World Series and more girls beginning to play in communities all around the world, an acceptance of the sport began to rise across all ages. The World of Little League Museum was also taking shape with adding more female exhibits to its institution, focusing on being inclusive and portraying the history of the program from the very start. However, the international stage still needed help, and the struggles of the Little League softball program were not erased. Faced with even more limited resources than the United States, communities throughout the Europe and Africa region always seemed to have additional challenges in developing the sport. As the government throughout Europe was stricter and going through political changes, largely in the 1990s and 2000s, the Little League softball program grew at a slower pace. "2022 was an exciting time for Little League softball. Just 1 year after finding a new home for softball in Greenville, North Carolina, there was another big change coming. The Little League Softball World Series would once again grow with the addition of 2 more teams, creating the Mid-Atlantic and Northwest regions to compete out of the East and West. This would provide more opportunities for young girls to compete at the World Series while inspiring growth of the softball program in those communities during the regular season.
We had the discussion that if we're going to expand the Little League Baseball World Series, we should do the same for the Little League Softball World Series. And the goal would be is to give, more kids the opportunity to participate in the World Series and then, take that experience back to their communities and really be ambassadors for the growth of the Little League Baseball and the Little League Softball program.
Softball is a great sport here at Little League, and we are behind when it comes to, look at baseball and softball. So for this particular event, it's really exciting to be able to add 2 more teams. What that means is more exposure to the game, more access to the game, and that's ultimately our goal here at Little League for baseball and softball, but especially on the softball side as we look to grow the game.
The East region and the West region are really our largest regions by the number of teams and leagues in those regions. And so as we looked at the math associated with that, both on the baseball and the softball side, it was only natural that those regions should be divided up into 3 from 2 so that more kids would have the opportunity to participate.
This has really provided more opportunity, I think, for more people to get involved at our World Series level. If you're playing, if you're coaching, or even volunteering, it's more opportunity for you to get involved. And the goal for us on the softball side is to bring the excitement to the World Series. So this opportunity brings at the local level, hey, if you're willing to play Little League softball, you can get to the World Series. So just another really exciting opportunity for them to go a little bit further than maybe they ever have before.
As Little League continued to make strides in bringing the game of softball to more communities and countries all around the world, girls of all backgrounds and abilities were coming together, united by their love of the game and making history along the way. Established in 1982 and re-envisioned in 2013, the World of Little League Museum has always highlighted the origins of the softball program while exploring new ways to give recognition to female athletes. Inside the museum, the passion of the Little League softball program truly comes alive, taking you through historical moments while displaying jerseys and past items from icons of the game like Kat Osterman, Heather Tarr, and Jenny Dolan Hill. It gives the chance for other young athletes to aspire and achieve in sports.
The museum doesn't shy away from telling the story of female participation in the Little League program. Throughout the museum, we try to make sure we have items from different females that were part of the program that were very special to the program. I think the Maria Pepe glove is a very special thing. It's a glove that she wasn't allowed to use, but we have it on display. Then the softball exhibit is something that we're always expanding on and working on.
I started at 9 years old, played Little League all the way through, because back then we had the big league softball, so we played until we were 18, winning the big league World Series back-to-back in 1984 and 85. That I had played third base, and there was a line shot down the third base line, runners on first and second, and I made the play, touched third base, threw it to first, almost overthrew it, but thankfully I had an awesome first baseman. She got it, and the girl was trying to advance from second to third, coming around from first, and she threw it back to me, and we were able to complete the triple play. And the ball actually was displayed in the World of Little League Museum.
It is truly a world-class museum, and I don't say that just because I ran it for a number of years. It is. I mean, people who go there and have any interest in baseball or softball love it, and people who don't have any interest love it because it's more than just what happens between the lines.
With the Little League Hall of Excellence in 2004, we inducted 3 females for the first time, and since then we've continued to induct females, athletes, former Little League players in the program. We do try to make it a point to, when you go out throughout the museum, that there is representation.
Little League has added a strong female presence to the museum throughout the years, and many females have been added to the Hall of Excellence, with the first being added in 2004, with Nancy Doreus, Kathy Gearing, and Chrissy Wendell Pohl. Since those inaugural all-female class, 6 other accomplished Little League graduates have joined the Hall of Excellence.
So when Steve Keener called, the president of Little League, to inform me that I would be inducted into the Little League Hall of Excellence, I was speechless. It's something that you don't aspire to being in a hall. You don't dream of having your name in the hall. You play a team sport, but it's really special to be able to see how far the game has come. I mean, we were playing in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Nobody knew about any of it other than the people back home in the city that we played in. And to be able to walk the halls and see the names of the people that have played Little League baseball, and see the women who had to forge that path, because there were young girls who wanted to play baseball and they weren't allowed. But then also now to see that these girls there's no ceiling. They're able to walk through this Hall of Excellence and this Hall of Fame and this museum that has so many huge names that they know, their parents know, and they're gonna be able to say, I wanna be there one day too. And they're able to say that because there's no walls, no barriers, no doors that they have to knock down. Little League gives them that chance.
As the program has grown, the museum has changed and evolved with it to make sure that celebrating female participation is at the forefront. While female participation in the United States had grown steadily throughout these 50 years, the rate at which females playing in the Europe and Africa region grew at a much slower pace. Accessibility to the game of softball was not readily available to many players.
Internationally, at least in Europe and Africa, when we talk Little League and we talk baseball, most people know a little bit about baseball. But when we start talking about softball, that's another story. So softball, through the years that I've been with Little League, I noticed that softball always follows behind baseball. And it's still a little bit the case today, although it has grown. The reason for it is that it's really not a popular sport in Europe, except several countries like Denmark, Italy, Netherlands, Czech Republic. But in other countries, softball really struggles. And the reason for it is that we don't really get in Europe or Africa baseball or softball on TV, and many people don't even understand what softball is.
It's very important for us to be on the international side, so that's another great way that we can gain exposure to the sport. So hopefully, they can see the games being played and say, I want to go represent my country, to put them on this big stage and to allow them to have the same exposure as the U.S. teams do.
A lot of countries don't even have access to equipment, and the softball fields are very limited. For example, in Poland, I think there are maybe 2 or 3 softball fields for the whole country. There are a lot of challenges and not that many resources, but what we do at Little League is we try to, provide assistance to local leagues and especially national federations that run softball programs in the country.
The only way to watch softball at a major level throughout the 1990s and 2000s in Europe and Africa was the Olympics. And with the ups and downs of softball in the Olympics, it was hard to grow a base for participation. But still, girls wanted to play.
Softball in the Olympics did for Little League softball is very similar to what baseball in the Olympics did for Little League baseball, which meant that as the funding flowed down from the International Olympic Committee to the respective Olympic organizing committees in different countries, many of those governing federations in those countries understood that if they were ever going to be competitive at the Olympic level, they really needed to have a stronger youth development program. And so they funded the development of youth softball, which in many cases they turned to us and said, look, Little League is the best program, the biggest, we want to be part of it. We have all the resources that we can offer to them. And so our program grew internationally largely because of the involvement of softball at the Olympic level. So that's been a great boom to us both on the baseball and softball side, but particularly on the softball side internationally.
Well, that's part of the problem and the challenge that we have, because many organizations, especially national federations in different countries, rely on the government funding to operate. So, if you have to operate with that this year you get funding, the next year you don't, and you go back and forth, how can you plan the future? So it does affect Little League softball development. At first, it was based on U.S. military bases in Germany, in Italy, so that's how Little League started, really, in Europe. And from there it started spreading, but the beginning was when the regional office was opened in Poland, and that was in 1996. That push for female athletes in Europe, because in the 1990s, at least for me, there were so many political changes. The Berlin Wall went down, so there was a lot of political issues in Europe. So I don't think there was much attention to back then to sports or female athletes. I think probably it happened a little bit later in Europe.
Although softball grew at a different rate in the Europe and Africa region, the love for the game was alive by many young athletes. Little League continues to push for inclusion so that more countries can be added to the program to help international participation grow and provide more opportunities to play.
But it's very challenging when you don't have fields, when you don't have equipment, you don't have coaches. There are a number of clinics being done all over the world. So there's a lot of effort being put from different organizations. It's just a matter of time that more girls, more female coaches will join. We also have Little League softball tournaments in Europe, and we are trying to grow participation there, because really right now the tournament is probably the biggest benefit for teams in Europe. And Africa has such a great potential for softball. We just need to continue to find ways to assist them and provide the resources, the minimal resources that they need, such as equipment and coaching.
In the Spanish culture, baseball and softball, a lot of boys and girls are heavily involved with the sports. Even in the MLB, you see a lot of baseball players from Dominican Republic, from Puerto Rico, so there's a lot of involvement there, but there's a lot of leagues, a lot of girls, a lot of women who look up to, the Puerto Rican national team or the Puerto Rican men's baseball team. So there's a lot of girls back home who are cheering for us, and there's a lot of women on the national team who also play back home, so there's definitely a lot of involvement.
So growing internationally, I think we really need to take in consideration what is offered right now. So when we talk to our DAs and our district administrators and volunteers internationally, what are they missing out on, and what can we help them develop? And whether it's, best practice guides or something of those sorts, but what can we help get into their hands so that way we can grow the game in those specific areas.
Little League softball at an international level has grown since 1974 and continues to grow every year. In 2024, the Europe-Africa region would win the Junior League World Series for the second time ever in program history. Little League softball in the Philippines also continues to strengthen in all divisions of play, further solidifying that girls want to play the game of softball. The Little League softball program has developed and changed over these last 50 years, but at the center of it all, it has always remained the same, providing girls the opportunity to have full access to play sports. With the influence of the world around it, Little League softball has flourished in the last 10 years and continues to grow the game so that more athletes can learn life lessons, experience teamwork, and most importantly, have fun while doing it.